Hey, today we are here with Kevin Laws, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his music education experience, and he has some different topics he wants to discuss as well. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much. I am the current band director at Enterprise Middle School in Eastern Washington. For the previous 5 years, I was the orchestra and choir director there. And then for 1 year before that, I was the guitar instructor at Chiawana High School in Pasco, Washington. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Nice to
Have you
meet you.
enjoyed it
Thank
so
you
far?
for having
Nice to meet
me.
you too.
Yes. Yeah. The last 2 years a little rough, but the whole I don't know what it was like in Ohio, but it was very recently, sort of the last 6 months out of this year that we were like teaching in person and teaching like
Oh my gosh.
we had like the kids come back, and it was like, okay, we can do, I guess it's sort of a misnomer there. It's like I could still teach and be in front of the kids. Those things like concerts were up in the air, things like
Yes.
performance activities, extracurricular activities, and things like that. But the kids were in the classroom. We were allowed to do concerts this year, which is amazing. Last year, at the end of the year, it was sort of one of those things that they never tell you that you're going to need. You have to be like you had to learn to be a good video editor. You had to learn to be a good audio engineer, because your end of the year concert is now, you're doing a multi-track recording of your students in the school. It's like I've got like 4 angles set up in my classroom so that the 8th grade choir kids can feel like they knocked something out this year. And that was a wild time, to be sure, but that's over. Which
We're
is
good
nice.
now.
Yeah, we hope.
Back on track for a little bit.
Anyway, yes, please, yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's been, one of those joys of education is that you get a little bit of variety. In that, I did my first job that guitar class, because I went to school for saxophone, clarinet, and then guitar.
Nice.
Classical guitar wasn't my like big bag. That was something that it was like, man, I know how to play the clarinet for real. I know how to play the saxophone for real. It might be nice to not be rock bonehead on guitar. But in every position that you will get, the second you come into the classroom, you're going to realize that no matter how good your music ed program was, there is going to be insufficiencies that you've got to work on. I mean, I don't know. Again, I went to school in Washington, but your brass tech class is not enough for you to be the trombone resource that you need to be for those kids, right?
Yes.
In my guitar classes that I took, and then becoming an orchestra and choir teacher, because I got to come back to my home district. This is the district that I went to school.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so I wanted to come back and be a part of that program. Although some of my teachers are kind of over it, because I was kind of a nightmare. Well, I was like a middle of the road kind of a nightmare in class, and then I come back and I'm like, hey, how's it going?
I'm teaching now. We're colleagues now.
Yes, we are peers, and it's just like, wow, now they feel ancient because they saw me like picking my nose behind a bass clarinet, and now I'm at like all the trainings.
Yes.
But it's just that you're going to come in and you're going to realize that no matter how hard you work, there's going to be homework day one, right? And I've enjoyed my string tech classes or whatever, but at the same time, it's like coming in and teaching. It's like, okay, what do I do to be the resource that these kids need? Because there was no way that my quarter class of cello was going to make me have a good right hand.
Exactly.
But that's the joy though too, is you get that variety, and then you also get to continue growing, because we like music. That's why we did
that's why we do this.
Yeah, and so I think it's fun that I get to learn a bunch of new instruments.
That's really cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see.
So how's the string thing been going?
Sorry, go ahead.
How has the string thing been going then?
The string thing has been awesome. I'm really sort of a funny story. I'm getting married on the 23rd.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. And the person that I'm getting married to is the other string teacher, who's
That's
one of the
so
other middle
cute.
school string teachers. So that was one of the ways that we first, connected when we were in
Aw,
the district, is we were
that's
both teachers. And
amazing.
she was like, "Yeah, you got some work to do, buddy." And I was like, "Okay, thank
You're like, you can help me.
you."
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, it was good. She was a very talented violist, and she was able to get my left hand together.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and as a guitar player, there was like a bunch of habits I had to break. It's like, just put frets in it.
Yeah,
Like
and
the
it's like
intonation. Why are we playing
it's
this
so
game?
different.
Nail a
Yes.
fret in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, but lots of work. It's like actual practice. You got to actually practice, and that's kind of the one of the things that I said when I volunteered to do this, was that idea of modeling and vulnerability,
Yes.
in terms of the relationship with students.
Mhm.
Um, Kids come in, and their assumption is that you are an expert. You've done this for 1 million years.
Yes. Yes.
You go to bed in the closet next to your desk.
Mhm.
You wake up at 5 in the morning. You practice for 3 hours, and then they
You
just
go to
expect
school.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just you're the instrument machine. That's who you are.
Yes.
And so being able to, model, not only like, we're sixth graders. Good morning, kids. The
Mhm.
reality of this is for the next months, if we're lucky, we're gonna suck a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's the reality. Um,
Mhm.
and it's like being able to be vulnerable with them, and then also demonstrate that it's like, if you practice, you get better.
Yes.
Which is
And
this like weird, great mystery, right? That we all fight with our kids. It's like, eventually they find out, oh snap, if I like want to do the thing, if I practice every day
yes,
for even like 20 minutes, then I can do
it
the
makes a
thing.
difference.
It's
Yeah.
wild that it's
Mhm.
just like, and I remember being 16, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. And then it's like, you go to like a clinic, and then there's this guy who just rips, and you're like, how can you play like that?
How can you
And
do
it's
that?
just like, I play my instrument at home.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
oh,
take it home with me and I open the case. Yeah.
no. But then it's like that modeling of vulnerability, in being honest with them. Kids are smart.
Yes.
If there is a lie you're trying to sell, if there is if you're putting on airs to try and be cool or whatever, kids can sniff that out really fast.
Yes.
If I came in and I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm a cello rock star, I'm a viola rock star, you should
Mhm.
see my alto clef sight reading.
Yes.
They would blow me up in a second. They would know instantly, right? But if you can be honest with them, and then you can also be vulnerable and play your instrument,
Mhm.
right? So I can't, I can because I put the time in, and you got to
Yes.
put the time in,
Mhm.
right? But when I was a second year teacher teaching an orchestra gig, when I'm dum saxophone man, right? You gotta just play. You have to play for the kids. It's like, okay, I've got to model a phrasing thing with my 8th graders. I
Mm.
can't model a phrasing thing as a freshman, excuse me, as a
Yes.
second year teacher, right? I
Yeah.
can't model phrasing on a viola,
Yeah.
right? I could try, but the intonation issues and then the tonal issues would be distracting from what it is I'm trying to teach.
Yes.
So when there's technique things, yeah, you use the instrument that the kids need to see. You've got to be able to do it on the fingerboard.
Yes.
But in that instance, it's like, I'm trying to model phrasing. Get your horn out, or use your
Yeah,
voice, or use
exactly.
your
Do
instrument,
something.
right?
Mhm.
That, yeah. So that you can have that balance of like, I'm going to be honest with you and real with you about where I'm at as an educator for you kids right
But
now.
it's good they
But at
see
the same time, I
that,
do, yeah. But at the same time, I can model exactly what it is I'm talking about, and I am a good musician. But this is the way that I have to package it to you. Because
Yes.
again, you can't lie to them; they're too smart for that.
Mhm.
And then the other thing too is we have to, as teachers, we always have to be kind of growing with the world around us, and that's really hard because you get people who are saying, one of the big things at our conference is culturally sensitive teaching, right? And while yes, that covers big topics, right? The world is changing very fast. There's a lot of really scary things in the news that affect different families in different ways. And a kid is going to come to school with that baggage. But what that also means is that when we're looking at culturally sensitive teaching, we're also looking at what kids' intake is,
Hmm.
right? If all of our kids, are on things like TikTok or on things like, Snapchat, which I think Snapchat's dead already. I think that one passed. I think we're on to just
We're on
TikTok
to the
now.
TikTok
There's
stage.
probably, yeah, I don't even know, man. I learned so much about Among Us and Fall Guys this year. I don't know. But but when we're talking about the idea of like culturally sensitive teaching, and it's like I have to understand that pacing, you
Mm,
know, I have to understand what kind of a pace are kids used to. Kids are used to 60 seconds of content,
yes.
right? Little tiny
Yeah,
bite sizes of
true.
content, which means that you've got to weave something that is an attention grabber in there.
Mhm.
Now it's our job, right? Because the goal is I'm a junior in high school, I'm playing Bacchanal, right? Or whatever, that I can play a whole chart, I can play a whole piece without losing focus and losing direction. But it's when we're in the early stages, I know these kids go home and they're used to 60-second
Yep.
videos, they're used to 30-second
Mhm.
videos, which means I've got to pop a joke in there, I've got to be
Yes.
high energy. When you teach sixth graders, man, it's like elementary school teachers have like my complete respect, because you got to be like one half comedian, one half like acrobat, one half to keep their
Yes.
attention at all. you know um but then it's also uh coming back to the idea of the relationship and stuff. um a kid has to come into your room, and I don't know if they talk about this in your program, but it's that idea of a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Have you heard about that in your
Yes.
program? If a kid doesn't feel safe, a kid hasn't ate,
Hmm.
a kid hasn't, been told that somebody loves them that day, they don't care about the viola. They don't care
Exactly.
about the bass,
Hmm.
right? And so the idea of that consistency of reminding them every day
Hmm.
that you are on their team and that you love them. And it's like, I'll say that. And it's like, sometimes, especially like eighth grade boys will be like, why are you saying that? It's weird. Who are you? You
Like,
can't be
because you
saying
need to
that.
hear this. Like, you
Well,
don't know
you
it, but you
do.
do need to hear this.
I don't know what it was this year. My eighth grade choir boys this year were just too cool. They were just like, no,
They're like,
man,
no, dude.
we're not
They're
doing
like,
that.
do
We
not
ain't
tell me
doing
that.
that. But it's like they the whole COVID thing.
Hmm.
Children are like kind of an amplifier of their households, right? Because little kids don't have that. I don't know how to act around other human beings yet, because I'm a little baby boy. I don't get it. I'm going to say
Yeah.
everything at 11, right? Um, and so they're extreme distillations of their intake at home.
Hmm.
So if you got a kid who goes home and COVID in a super loving, super supportive family, I'm never going to say it was like everybody being shut in their houses was a good thing,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, if that was, oh, you know what, stay-at-home mom is just kicking butt and she's like doing a bunch of family-centered stuff. She's got a bunch of programs for those kids that she's doing. They're doing family game night every night now because we don't got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Then that kid is going to come, with that energy.
Hmm.
And not one way or another, because people got to eat. But
Yeah.
if you're, I was seeing this in my classes. If you're an eighth grader, in your eighth grade, big brother, big sister, and mom and dad got to work because we still got to eat, right? Your mindset is that school is not a priority when you came
No,
home.
it can't be,
Right, yeah.
Those needs are being met.
Exactly. So when we have to go into the room and meet these kids where they're at, especially at the beginning of the year, it's sort of being this open, I'm accepting whatever energy is coming in from this kid. I'm accepting what is, so that I can figure out why, and then I can create a scaffolded plan, not just like curricularly, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard being an elective teacher, especially. Yeah, there's content that has to get done, but you as the individual need to be able to balance. Does this kid really need to get better at the saxophone today? Does this kid really need to get better at the trumpet today? Or does this kid need to figure out that it is okay to drop the shield for like a second? And it's draining. It's tough sometimes, but it's that idea that you need to be open and receiving of these stories that kids are bringing in their backpack,
Yeah.
so that we can we can be informed about the way that we're approaching how we want this kid to get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not you know, there's no cut and dry, like I don't have like a 5-step plan.
I
You
said
know, a
plan
kid
to
walks
reach
in.
children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't, I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have that for you. But
Oh.
if it's like you see a kid and you can tell, you know what's up. The sad thing is, right, that a majority of human beings, I'm not going to say teachers, I'm going to say a majority of human beings don't have time, don't make time to get over the crap that they throw into their own bag, you
Mhm.
know? And so that idea of that vulnerability of putting yourself out there is something that we don't get to. If you're poked full of holes, right, you're not able to get out there and figure out how to help somebody else with theirs.
Mhm.
But the sad reality is, if you do not reach out to that kid, very often no one else will.
Yep.
And that's the hard reality of what it means to be a good teacher, is that even when, right, I go to school, I'm tired, you will go to school and you will be very tired.
Yeah. And you still gotta be there for them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You still gotta. And it doesn't have to be extravagant,
No.
right?
Hi,
Kids
how are
don't
you
need,
doing?
you know,
Like-
you see all these. Yeah. Kids see these like or not kids, you will go on to like Pinterest or Reddit or whatever, and you see these like stories of like, I always remember how my teacher changed my life when I said I couldn't afford cleats for baseball, and I
And they
showed
bought
up
me.
and there were new Eastons in my locker. You know,
Yeah.
it
No.
doesn't gotta be that. It straight up just needs to be like, if you just make the effort for 2 seconds, and so, hey, can you stay after class for a second? You're not in trouble. I just need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Always lead with, you're not in trouble.
You're not in trouble. Not.
'cause,
Hey,
you know,
I need to see you.
because like, well, especially when it's like, you know, I'm like 6'2", especially with the 6th graders. I'm not trying, you know, but I'm a big dude, and I'm like, you know, hey, I need to see you after class. You know, they're gonna hit the deck, dude. But it's like, you know, even if it's just like, I noticed that there was something different today.
Mm-hmm.
And like, usually you're just like this bright spot in my class, and right now it seems like there might be something going on. Do you want to talk to me about it?
Yeah.
Right. And it's got to be this position of, do you want me to talk about it? Do you
Yes.
want to talk to me about it? And if you do, I want to listen, but it is okay if you don't.
Yeah.
Because 8 times out of 10, when a kid is visibly upset and they do not want to talk to you about it in that moment, if it is something that you need to hear, they'll come back and talk to you about it later.
Yeah.
And the last thing that we need to do is to create anxiety by prying, right? If I've got a
Yeah,
kid
no
that's
thanks.
going, if I've got to go, you know, and again, there's some like, you've got to understand your ground game. You got to be able to read the room. And if it's really bad, yeah. And if you have a positive relationship, which you need to with your school counselors, you have to have a positive relationship with your school counselors, so that if you get a list of like, these are kids that we need to watch, and here is why,
Yes.
you can use that information, and you need to keep that information in your pocket when you're interacting with that student. But at the same time, we need to make sure that it's like it is a light, you can come to me and you can give this to me and I'm ready to receive it, and
Yes.
not like hey, I need to know what's wrong with you right now.
Tell me what's
okay?
going on. Yeah. We don't.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. And again, read the, you know,
I
read
agree.
the relationship with that student and read the kiddo.
Mhm.
Because there are, you know, I say this, but then there's the exception to the rule. I had this one girl my very first year teaching who was very like, just like too tough. She just was too tough. She didn't want anybody's help. She didn't need anybody's help. And eventually, like through the language that she was using and through the fact that I knew that she trusted me, because
Yes.
it's like in my class, you know, she was like tough, but she would do what I asked of her. And then I'm hearing from all these other teachers, it's like, yeah, she doesn't do anything.
So you're
She's
like,
just sitting
okay.
there. She's just sitting there photosynthesizing. It's like, all right, buddy, thanks for that.
Yep. Thanks for that.
But it's, you know, I can tell that she did something. It's like, okay, what can I do? It's like,
Yeah.
it's just reading that relationship and having that
Mhm.
that honesty with the kid. It's like, where are you? What's going on?
Yes.
And then deciding in that moment, okay, is there especially if there's a safety issue, which is sad and it is rough, right? And I've been teaching for 6 years, and I've already been on the phone with, CPS probably 4 or 5 times. And then I couldn't count how many times I needed to do a follow-up with a counselor or with admin, and then they decided that there was something that's there, right? So it's like that, and that's not even talking about music education.
General.
But at the same time, that is like, what was your major? Sorry, I'm gonna
music education. So
Music education.
I am teaching at Coshocton City Schools right now, music.
Okay.
And I'm also doing my master's. So
awesome. And then what was your emphasis?
Vocal
or
instrumental, but I'm in a situation I'm doing general music and choir.
Okay.
But
sorry. So then oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. I had this like big thing. Oh, okay. What do you play? Sorry.
Cello.
Oh, okay. So you're like, ow.
Yeah.
I bet he's got that. He's got that terrible woodwind player hand. I bet he does. I bet his intonations are the best. And you'd be right. But you can play. I'm sure you can play, right? You're a collegiate level player, and your the trust that you need to have in yourself with musicianship is going to carry you through most of the problems. Just trusting yourself and knowing that you did the work. Like, I know what this is supposed to sound like. I can trust my ears. I can find that problem and I can fix it, right? But it's the truth is that we will never be able to get there if those kids don't trust us. Right?
Exactly.
And it's not my kid's got to think I'm cool. My kid's got to think I'm rad. They don't need that.
No.
Some of them want that. And they're gonna try to get that,
make
right?
it.
If they find out that if you're teaching middle school and they find out you play Apex Legends, that's what they're gonna try to make that class. That's gonna be
like, actually no.
Talk to Mr.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be talk to Mr. Laws about anime class now, right? And it's like,
you're
no.
Actually, we're learning strings.
We got some stuff to do, but at the same time, before class, after class,
fine,
being real with them allows you to connect with them.
Yes.
But we can't get to what does our marcato sound like, right? Or what is our martele look good, sound good, feel good? Yes. We can't get to that. We can't talk about spiccato if those kids don't understand, this person wants me to be successful. This person cares. Yes. This person is going to do what they need to do to help me, right? But that also goes into why. So I talked about like non-content area stuff, right?
Yes.
Because that's where I feel like I did the most learning my first 5 years of teaching.
Yes.
It wasn't, I did learn a lot about strings. Like I'm not gonna lie about that. But as far as like you're the guy in the room or you're the woman in the room or the person in the room or whatever, what I learned about was that relational stuff and why that is so important for getting kids to be on your team. But then it comes to when we're talking about curriculum and content, why go so far with kids, right? It's this idea of things like scales, right? You remember being a kid, and maybe it was different for you. Maybe you were like really, really driven and all that stuff, and I was just like, listening to like Green Day, wondering how come there's not more saxophone in Green Day. But like something like scales, something like scale patterns. What is this boring garbage? Why do we bother? Something like posture. It doesn't matter, dude. I just don't want to put creases in my Nikes, so I'm gonna sit like this, right?
Yes.
It's that extra minute of why, and it's like, maybe I do lose. Maybe if you took, and I don't like proselytize, or whatever. And I'm sure it seems like I really love the sound of my own voice during this here interview because I haven't stopped talking for more.
No, I'm.
But like,
glad you're talking.
Maybe if you like tallied it all up, right, and you like took there and sat with a recording, which would be my nightmare, right? I would lose my mind. But if you sat there with a timer and you're like, okay, he is wasted, in a year he spent 3 hours of instruction talking about why he's going to do something. That's like, you know,
important to them.
I know, that's like 10. Yeah, that was 10 reps, dude. Your concert's 10 reps worse now, you know. And like, yeah, you need to play as much as possible because that's how kids learn, right? So like in a 45-minute classroom, or sorry, in a 45-minute or 50-minute amount of time where you can actually do work without setup and teardown, you need to play for 40 minutes of it, right? That should be the goal, whether or not we make it there. But at the same time, it's like if there's a question or if there's pushback, a legitimate why, a why that is, you know, why do we bother with posture? This is lame. Well, it's like, okay, well, look at your wrist. Okay, now if I'm playing here and I'm in first position and my wrist is collapsed, what happens to my intonation? Where does it go? Instantly, flat. So when we're playing, you know, this, you know, E minor version of Swan Lake, sorry, purists, when we're playing this E minor version of Swan Lake, and for some reason this chord that has this sudden accidental sounds like Hot Garbo, it's like that is the reason. And that's something that we can fix right now. And it's not go into the shed, go into your room and practice for 7 hours.
Oh, it's just one little
straight.
Yeah.
And it's like that moment, how long did I talk for? Like 2 minutes. That's the difference between a kid going, man, whatever, and a kid going, oh, okay, you know.
And they'll think about that later, you know.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh yeah, you told us blah blah blah.
Yeah. And then it's also that goes for big picture concepts too, and that goes for things like behavior, which you will have. Kids choose to be in your class, right? And that's a blessing, and we need to recognize that and acknowledge that when we're teaching, that those kids chose to be there.
Yes.
And we should be thankful that they made that choice. But at the same time, we're still going to have, you know, maybe less than a math teacher, maybe less than a history teacher or a language arts teacher. We're still going to have disciplinary issues because they're kids. They're trying to figure out, you know, it's sort of like a trial and error of how does a human being need to function. And so they're like bouncing into all of these decisions until they figure out what the one that gets them the most positive feedback is, right? So when we see disciplinary issues, I have yet to have a situation where it wasn't worth it to give them a why explanation. You should know better does not work.
No.
Because if because if they knew better, they wouldn't have done it.
Exactly.
Right? And we have no idea what is being modeled for them at home. We see them for 1 hour a day. Right? And if they're this is a hard thing to accept about it, in that moment of them being a goof, right? In that moment of them being a goofball, that is also them displaying that they trust us enough to be themselves around us.
Exactly.
And so what we need to do is we need to redirect that behavior.
Yep.
We can't just try to obliterate that
off,
behavior. Right. Because what that models to that kid is, if you act like yourself, if you act like the goofy goob that you are, if you act like, you know, a little off color for this moment, I will reject that.
Yeah. And it's like, no, it's just, you gotta do this thing and thing.
It's like, yeah, you are a performer. Right now you're performing for the other 30 kids in this class, right? You're doing your best to get everybody in your section to applaud and laugh at you right now. And so it's like, how do we turn that into this? And that's through humor. But at the same time, that's also through consistent, firm.
Yes.
You know, if sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not,
then it's it's like, where's that line?
Right.
Why is it okay with this kid, not this kid?
Right. The message is lost. Right. It's you know, it becomes something of you know, oh, I have to retest that boundary so I can actually figure out where it is. Right? Yeah.
It's like, and
I'm not saying that kids will sit there and like think about it and go, all right, you got upset when Bobby did it. You didn't get upset when Jonathan did it. I'm going to go find Zeke and see if I can get him to do it. And so we'll see if he's mad or not. And that seems like really far-fetched, but they've done stuff like that to me before.
Yeah.
Oh man, when I first started teaching, the big thing was dunking on Mr. Laws. Did you see? It was like it was not a TikTok trend at that point. I think it was like Snapchat and maybe Reddit. I don't know. But what it is you start a conversation with your teacher with a piece of paper in your hand, and then
Yeah.
all of their friends grab the garbage can and put it behind the teacher, and then they grab your shoulder and like dunk it behind you into the garbage can.
No.
Yeah, okay. Well, blessed are you that you didn't get to experience that. But they tried to make a game of it and see if they could get me to tilt. This was during my student teaching. And
Yeah.
I was like a little, you know.
You're like,
Yeah. And I guess that goes into the last thing that I want to talk about.
mhm.
I didn't have strong self-confidence when I went into my first couple years teaching. I had a lot of insecurities, especially because I went into school, I went into college
Yeah.
with the mindset, I'm going to have my favorite band director's job, which means that
Yeah.
I teach 2 jazz bands, I teach a beginning band, an intermediate band, and a wind ensemble. And that is the job that I'm going to have. Those jobs grow on trees. I'll be able to find one, and it's going to be awesome. And then my first job was classical guitar.
You're like, okay.
Yeah, no, and I could read and I like had good technique, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not an authority. How can I be an authority? Like,
Mhm.
how can I, and then the same thing for my second year, when I moved from there to the orchestra choir position. I
Yeah.
did choir in college, and I did choir some I didn't do choir in high school, so I was in band and jazz band, so I did some Master Singers, which is our
Yes.
local like
Mhm.
extra choir. And so it's like I could sing and I could trust myself and I could play piano well enough to fake it, but like orchestra coming in, it was like I feel but the thing is that you are a good musician if you made it out of, to varying
Yes.
degrees, right? Like I'm not filling in with, the Kenton Reformation Big Band or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you are. I've never heard you play. Maybe you could sit in with the Phil, right? You could go sit in with the Akron Phil, right? Maybe you could. But you still made it
Mhm.
where hundreds of thousands of people throughout history, if not more, have not. So you need to trust yourself in your musicianship. And when you know the answer is correct, you need to have the security in yourself when you're talking to kids, when you're talking to parents, when you're talking to admin, that this is what my kids need to be successful. And
Yeah.
that one was really hard for me, especially parents. Parents was really scary and hard to me because they're all older. Your first 10 years teaching, every parent you talk to is going to be older than you are. And they will treat you like it, not disrespectfully,
Yeah.
but if you're the same age as their oldest kid,
Yeah. They're
that's
like,
how they're going
okay.
to interact with you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it's firmly but kindly having the confidence in yourself to make the demands that your program needs to be successful, which is very hard, especially too with admin, your bosses,
Yes.
But at the same time, if there's something that your kids need to be successful, it is using the strong language and being firm but kind in saying that
Yep.
my kids will not be successful without this. There has to be some,
Mhm.
what can I do to help this become a reality? What
Yes.
can we do to work together on this to make this a reality?
Mhm.
And that goes a long way. Your bosses, your parents, are people, and people want the least effort with the most positive outcome, right? And so if you go into it is what it is, and it's a bummer, but it's like least effort with the best outcome. And if you can come into a situation and let them know that this is what has to happen,
Yeah.
and I will work with you to make it happen, but this is what has to happen.
Mhm.
That goes a long way. And it means being confident in yourself, and also being confident enough in yourself to say the phrase, I do not know, but I will get that to you tomorrow,
Yes.
for kids, parents, and for admin.
Mhm.
Because again, if you think, kids are smart enough to catch you in a lie, so are parents and your admin. Don't lie to your
Yeah, just
bosses.
be honest.
Don't
Just-
lie to your
yeah.
parents. Just be honest. And if that means that in this moment, I cannot get that to you, but I will find out.
Yes.
And then you have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
Follow
the
through.
reality of you've got to follow through, because it takes just one time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even with the world's best intentions, it takes one time.
Yes.
You can have a 75% for sure from a college visit that you want to take the kids on. You
Yes.
cannot tell the kids until it is a 100. You cannot talk to a parent
No.
about it
Yeah.
until it is
No.
100. Yeah. And that's, that's just the hard reality. Or you've got to be very honest with them. It's like, do not get your hopes up.
Yeah.
We're at 75% talking to parents. I'm not going to, that was a lesson that I had to learn. Because working with other teachers in my district, or working with other teachers in other districts, or what have you, if you talk about a possibility that is not 100% certain and it doesn't come to pass, they trust you a little less.
Yes. They're
And
like,
that has,
oh, they told
it
us this.
doesn't make it doesn't make you a bad person, but the reality is that, like, taking a second, it's always okay to take a second, think and decide
Yes.
what is the reality of the situation, and then be firm but kind and honest. I've always been surprised, because I have these 8th graders, and if you'll know what I'm talking about, where you go into your staff meetings, you go into an after work hang.
Yep.
Or whatever, and you just hear these stories about your kids. You hear these stories about your kids that kick butt for you, but not for other folks.
Yeah.
And the difference there is that consistency, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you take some time, you figure out what it is that they need, and you take some time to be real with them and talk to them in a way that leads them to acting like a young adult.
Yes.
Right. If I talk to a kid, those kids that are that step up for you, and then in math class they're, trying to see how many spit wads they can get onto the teacher's monitor before she notices, right? That difference is I'm talking to you and expecting you to be a young adult, because I know that you can, and that's the thing.
Possible.
That I know that you can do that. You totally could. You could be a leader in this group. You could kick so much butt, but you got to choose to do it. And I know that you will, and I know that you can. And I'm asking you to do it right now, and I know it's hard, but you can do it.
Yeah.
And I've always been pleasantly surprised. Well, always is a strong term. I definitely have come in during a sectional, to some good Manhasset stand modern art or whatever.
Okay.
Only once, but
too bad.
I'm not going to say that. I only have angels, but
yes, true though.
Yeah.
Well, I've loved talking.
Only good kids. But,
yeah, only good kids. Well, thank you so much for all of your advice and your experience, and loved the different topics you wanted to talk about today. And I think they'll be a very informative for other people to watch this and see.
Sure, I hope so.
Yes.
They're gonna be like, man, this guy talks a lot.
Well, it's good though. Yeah, and I hope you have a great wedding. It will be fantastic.
I will try. I hope me too.
Just a couple more weeks. It'll be good.
Yeah, found out that wifey's family's paying for catering.
When?
It's amazing news.
Well, that's good. Well, I wish
it means we get to eat for the rest of the month after.
Eat,
oh yeah. Anyway.
Entire month. Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Sorry, I will let you go. Yeah,
no, you're
so
good. Thank you. It was nice to meet you. Bye.